actually look into the data and so on, because you don't have live telemetry and so many engineers doing stuff at the same time, you know.
Data overload then, completely coming into this one. Absolutely.
Did it surprise you when you've had a look into Formula One after being in Formula 3, obviously, and when you open that engineer's office and you just see computers everywhere and engineers looking at squiggly lines on every single one of them, and there are engineers looking at the aero data, the power unit performance, every single aspect there is someone controlling, rather than, as you said, what you're doing, where you've got basically people looking at your speed trace and your gears and working out how to go faster. Of course, the big difference is that these cars are upgrading and changing the whole time.
Yeah, so I think, it kind of has to make sense, you know, that there's a lot more people in an F1 team, a lot more engineers looking into details. They can adapt the car, they do the car from like zero on. And in F3, you kind of have zero chassis. You have the same engines all over the grid, so you cannot tune and change so much as in F1. So it makes sense, obviously, and it's great. It's like a whole spectrum of people trying to get the maximum out of every single part of the car.
And Formula 3 for you last season as well. How do you reflect now?
Yeah, well, first of all, obviously, it was great to come back into formulas. I had a little break doing endurance racing, which was great fun as well. Obviously, 24 Hours of Le Mans is one of the greatest races ever. But I was really happy to be able to actually come back in F3 and really enjoyed it. We finished in the points, which was kind of the goal with PHM together. It was a complete new team. We finished in the points. Red Bull kind of got taken away, but in Spa. So happy to be in F3 again with Flammersford, who is a for sure better team, or like they had a better performance last year, and we'll see what we can do this year. But happy to get the season started next week, actually.
And with that in mind then, how has your winter been? How's the off-season been? How's training been in preparation?
Good. We had some training camp with Alpine some weeks ago, and obviously I did Macau end of last year in November, which was amazing to go back to again. It's always a pleasure to do the World Cup in Formula 3. It wasn't actually that long, to be fair, so just hyped to go get racing again and have Bahrain and Australia now.
Where was training camp? What did it?
So we went to Tenerife, and it was actually warmer than it is in Bahrain, so it was nice.
Beautiful.
Kevin Magnussen on a lap here. He's just coming through turn 10 up to turn 11 with the C3 tyre.
Long running for Magnussen as well. Everyone is such a quiet period for on-track action after the hour window where people were starting to cycle through the lower fuel.
It's not power hour yet.
Well, we think Jolyon is possibly a bit of a curse for today, because we went trackside earlier on. Every single car then pitted. We didn't have any car on track for about half an hour. Jolyon then came up to the commentary box. The session was red flagged, and then ended an hour early.
The curse is gaining strength. That's what I'm worried about.
Not been my day. I've been here for a long time now in the box, and I've seen many of those times towards the top end. So you guys are the ones in charge of power hour coming up. Let's see if anyone goes for it. But we're in the doldrums of Formula 1 testing in this bit. Just long runs, high fuel, data gathering.
When you were with Renault, was the training camp still in Tenerife? I feel like they go to Tenerife a fair bit and have done for years.
I had no training camp in Tenerife. I think because the Renault Academy guys were still doing it. Tenerife is the Canaries in general is a very popular training camp area. Is it?
Actually we have many Olympic groups like preparing for Paris there, like crossfitters and swimmers and so on. It was crazy.
But that's some benchmark.
Yeah.
To be training with.
We arrived in the strength area, like the CrossFit box, and we were all like, okay, I think we got to train.
Cyclists as well. Plenty of cyclists head out to Tenerife.
Yeah, true.
Super tough terrain out there.
It's hilly, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So is it we use cycling, running, and then doing some weights?
So a lot of strength session actually in the morning, swimming. We went swimming twice a week, running in the sun in the afternoon, which was amazing, obviously. And just some ice bath, which some of us didn't like as much, but no, it was
How
good
do you like
fun.
Ice baths? Because obviously
it's a lot of pain.
Cold water therapy is a real thing at the moment, isn't it?
is.
And everyone talking about the benefits of it. It's something you do enjoy in a sort of perverse way?
Well, it kind of helps, obviously, to recover, but it is painful. But Dave, our trainer, kind of made us do it, so we couldn't really skip it.
That's true.
Talking of the day job of Formula 3, what are your expectations for the season? You're part of the Alpine Academy. you've waited for this chance for a long time. So you're in Formula 3 in 2020. You go to sports cars. You get the chance to get back on the grid. And now, Van Amersfoort, you were 11th in Macau recently. So you've got to be aiming for points week in, week out. That's surely the aim.
Yeah, so that's the goal, right. I mean, to be honest, it's kind of my third year in Formula 3, so for sure the goal is to be consistently in the points and then see, you know, we have a reverse grid race on Saturday, so we'll aim to always kind of be around the top 10 for quali and then see, you know, races, anything is possible in Formula 3. So if we get a podium here and there, it would be amazing. But obviously, joining the academy beginning of last year was kind of the biggest step in my career and the best step in my career because I think being part of a F1 program or F1 team program junior program is super helpful, and you just learn a lot more for your racing and your career.
How exactly is that? Because when I was coming through the ranks doing GP2, Formula 2 now, I was racing against Stoffel Van Dorn, who was in the McLaren Academy. Raffaele Marcello at the time was in the Ferrari Academy. And I'll be honest, I was a little bit jealous. I was thinking, these guys, they look so prepped. They've probably done Tenerife training camps. They're absolutely dialed in. What benefits do you get from the access to a Formula 1 team?
Yeah, well, it's not just a training camp, but I mean, it's just many people, you know, with a lot of knowledge who can help you get a better racing driver. I mean, it's our sporting director, obviously Julian, who's in contact with us quite a lot, and they just kind of prepare you and give you sights on different things which your engineers normally don't do, and just make you understand tires, for example, a lot more and more in detail, and also explain you how they actually work and how they're like the different steps in a tire. So and then obviously you have physios, trainers who kind of develop you for the next series already. So I'm training now as well, not to be fit enough for a 3. It's more about training to be ready for Formula 2, which is my goal for next year. And then I mean it's no secret at all as well that you just need budget in the end. So that's also a big plus side, and was also for me the decision why I was able to come back into formulas.
You talk about the step up of obviously from F3 into F2, but also seeing the step up from F3 into being embedded within a Formula 1 team. What do you think the biggest challenge, the biggest step, the biggest learning is between those 3 stepping stones?
Well, I think in the series itself, I mean, F3 and F2, you obviously have a pit stop, the whole strategy, it's a lot more complex in general. Obviously now, also this year, there's new cars coming in, so F2 will be interesting anyways. But I think for junior driver in general, the more information you can get, the more you can learn, the better it is. For on-track and also off-track things, you know, also the endurance racing for me was super helpful in just being able to get to know how to work with engineers and be a better team player, let's say. So anything helps, to be fair.
With Formula 3, it's a 30-car grid.
Yeah, it's messy.
Mr. Palmer over here tells a great story of his favourite ever Formula 1 drive, or one of his favourite ever Formula 1 drives, where he went unrewarded out of the points. Have you been in a situation where you've maybe gone from the back to not a main position because you had the great point scoring finish in Belgium last year that was a wild race. That was a fantastic race. If you haven't seen that, well worth checking out the YouTube highlights. Do you ever go, I've had a fantastic day, and yet I've not got the limelight because there's 30 cars out there?
I do, and I think every single racing driver does, because obviously, I don't know, winning or finishing on a podium is always nice because it kind of gives you back what you've worked for, and everyone kind of sees it, not just yourself, but also team sponsors, media. But most of the times there's actually races where you're like, okay, this was my best performance ever, and this day was perfect, I did no mistakes, and you just don't get rewarded as much, let's say. So it's been the same. Also, I don't know, for example, when I did my first Le Mans in 2020 and we actually finished 9th in the class, that was also a really good race in our perspective. And also Macau last year, I mean, my goal was to finish in the top 10, and it kind of didn't happen because safety car came out for the last laps. But still, it was a really good race for me coming back, and I don't know, being back with Van Amersfoort and still a World Cup. So I think that's part of racing sometimes, because it is really competitive out there and it's super close together. So sometimes just all things need to fall into place to have a good day.
Jolyon, I don't think I've heard this story of the Formula One race.
Oh, look, it's not a big tale of woe. Sainz smoking his way into the pit lane. It's not a big tale of woe. It's my greatest drive, which was arguably Japan 2016. No one would know that, but it's like Sophia was saying there, where you get inner satisfaction that you've got the most out of your machinery. I finished 12th on the day. The car wasn't particularly good, but no one dropped out. It was 20 drivers in. Normally you're going to have a couple of retirements ahead. You're going to bank a point or two. No one drops out. Came through the field a little bit and just put together what I thought was as good a race as I'd done. But honestly, no one will know until I broadcast it on air now. So here's your chance to go and look up the stats of Japan 2016.
Get on YouTube, look at the highlights from that race. Do you think you made the highlights even?
No, I wouldn't have made the highlights. This is the other thing. Unless you're running at the front end, you don't make the highlights either. So you obviously drive the race and spend in a Formula One. It's an hour and a half typically in the car, and you're living your best life driving a Formula One race. You get out, this is in front of a world audience. No one's seen you for an hour and a half. Only when you're being lapped by the Hamiltons and Verstappens of the world. Oh, he's still going.
Good stuff. Carlos Sainz then on the C2, as you mentioned, Jolyon, a lot of long runs seem to be done. They're not following the rules, the script of golden hour and power hour that this commentary box is trying to instill on day 2 of testing here in Bahrain. For those just joining us, I'm Laura Winter. Alex Jakes alongside me, Sophia Flörsch, is also here in the box with us, F3 driver and part of the Alpine Academy as well, and Jolyon Palmer recounting his glory days in Formula One. Do make sure you check out Brazil.
Oh, Laura! I crashed out of Brazil. Don't check that out. It's not been deleted from the archive yet.
The gallery are trying to find this, by the way, and they're going to be there for hours.
Let's get Brazil and Japan 2016 up on testing, just to relive some of Jolyon's finest hours in Formula One machinery.
This is why I do testing coverage, really, just to get a few of these brilliant nuggets from my career out there in the dull moments.
Keep yourself relevant. We love it, Jolyon.
Nice bit of revisionist history. I like it.
Look back at the stats, and it was actually such a bog average drive. Don't look too close. I felt good at the time, all right?
Sophia, look, we're looking at Alpine as well. Tell us, what's the feeling within the team? We talk so much about body language at testing. We don't talk about the times. We say and caveat it with fuel loads, and it's only day 2 of testing and so on. It's all about the race weekend. But what are you sensing from the dynamic within the team as to how they're feeling ahead of the first race of the season?
Yeah, I think they're really happy. I mean, obviously, like every other team here as well, they have the testing program. They're trying to do many error runs. I mean, it's a pretty new car. So yeah, they're just trying to get laps in. I mean, yesterday they were pretty confident. They did 120 laps and it all looked quite good. It's testing. It's the same in F3 and F2. You never know where you are until kind of quali or, like, say, second or third round. So yeah, but they look quite confident, to be fair.
Are they going to take some fuel out soon?
Well, you asked them, not me.
Will Bucks is in the pit lane, I think, standing by. Maybe he can get an answer on that one, whether we might see a few glory runs from Alpine taking some fuel out, putting on some slightly softer compound tyres. We'll see.
Are we going to Will, or was that just mentioning he exists?
He does exist. He's in the pit lane for
This is just
us.
Me unsettled that I'm not in the lead seat. That's all it is.
I just looked at you and said, would you like to say something?
And I would, surprisingly. Sophia, you've raced around this circuit with the other 29 in the field here last year. This is a really tough track on the tyres in any formula. Tell us about keeping the tyres alive around here.
Yeah, it's actually a really hard life for the tyre here, especially for the rears, just because the surface is really rough, and yeah, especially races also for us. I mean, in F3 you don't have any pit stops, so the tyre deck is quite high. Also last week when we were actually testing here doing long runs, it was not easy to keep them alive actually, but you know, you have traction corners, so in the end, turn 1, turn 2, turn 4, turn 8, turn 10, it's kind of corners where you always are in low gears needing traction. So it's kind of adapting the driving style to really try and V the corners to be straight, to be able to go on throttle smoother, and also kind of try to be safer with fighting in the beginning of the race, just to not have any lockups and damage the core, let's say.
Not so easy with 30 cars on the grid.
No, especially with 30 young drivers trying to win in lap 1. So no, it's always really busy in F3, which is fun, to be fair, because you can really gain positions in the first laps. But Bahrain, because to be fair, if you have like tracks with a lot of DAC, that's kind of when you can do a difference and really go for it. So I really like that track, and cannot wait for next week.
As we're once again on the Haas of Kevin Magnussen, just bumping his way through there. Coming up just behind Ricciardo in the RB.
I'm not going to be here for Power Hour, but
it's a message to the gallery.
To Joe.
Tomorrow's another day. We can try again. Daniel Ricciardo, I think, is going to go for something soon. So he's just improved his lap time on the C3. He was one that went a little bit later yesterday as well. So I think Ricciardo and that RBs, they've had, after much acclaim yesterday, they've had a bit of a quieter day so far. But he's just improved that time, and he's still out there. I don't know if he's going to pit on this lap or go for another one on the C3 tyres, but I think there's someone that's going to be going for something racier a little soon.
Racier.
That's what we're here for. The racier, the better.
Palmer's commentary style is demanding the action that he wants to see on the circuit, and it did work yesterday, maybe today.
Do you find it frustrating when you're in the Alpine garage and you're seeing the cars 13th and 14th, and they're not shown what you're capable of at the moment? Here we go. Talk of the devil. Esteban Ocon winding his way through. He might be about to show what he's capable of here because he's on a C3 and going quicker. But do you find it frustrating when you're like, come on guys, let's see what we can do?
Well, I mean, if you actually got like all the ideas behind it and you know like what the plan is, it kind of makes sense what they're doing, you know. I mean, I'm a racing driver myself. I kind of know, you know, how the game is working. So I think it's just what everyone tries to do. It's about gathering data and in the end to be ready and there when it's actually important, and that's next week. Friday.
No, Thursday.
Thursday?
Because it's Saturday race.
Oh.
Yes. Saturday race day. First race day of the season.
True.
Is a Saturday for this 2024 Formula One season. As we see Esteban Ocon heading down into turn 14, 15, sweeping down into the start-finish straight. Going wide through there.
No C4 tyres for Alpine this week.
Nor McLaren, yes.
So this will be as good as it gets in terms of the tyres for Ocon, and he jumps up to Ricciardo territory in the RB on the same tyre at the same time. Those two clearly dropping a bit of fuel out at the moment, and finally getting off what looked to be a fatter car, a heavier car.
Tenuous link here, but speaking of McLaren, which you sort of mentioned them, Will Buxton is down in the pit lane at McLaren. He wants to get in on some of the action in the comms box, but there's also a fair bit of action at McLaren at the moment. Will?
Thank you, Laura. Lando Norris out of the car and just having a chat, and doesn't look like he's going to be going out any time soon, and that's because the engine cover is off, the torches are out, and everything is getting taken to pieces. The boys literally up to their elbows. And if we take a little step to the side and have a little look at what's going on, it appears to be around the fuel port. So on the side of the car, there's the little port where the nozzles go in and they can take fuel out, put fuel in. They've just taken off, I think, you can't see because they're all in the way of it, but they've actually removed that panel from the side of the car and literally delving in all the way down deep into the underbelly of the car. And when you see torches out and this kind of work, it's definitely not a scheduled setup change or anything like that. A bit of an issue down here. Not entirely sure what the issue is. We're not getting any confirmation from McLaren on that at the moment. But still, Lando looks calm. Team is clearly not going to the run plan. But no major panics down here at the moment. They will, however, want to get him out on the track. Wind is picking up, temperature is dropping. We are in the golden hour. Hopefully going to see some quick runs, but as you guys have already touched on, no C4 tyres for either Alpine or McLaren. So we're not going to see any glory runs. We may not see any more runs at all for Lando Norris today.
Thank you very much indeed, Will. Not how McLaren would have wanted to end day 2 of testing, and Lando Norris not in the car, not able to take advantage of Jolyon Palmer's power hour.
We're branding it now.
I think so. We need a button or something. We need some sort of graphic on it.
Sounds like a game show.
Well, it's all a game, isn't it, Formula One? But yes, McLaren not ending things how they want to on day number 2. We have a few more minutes with Sophia up here in the comms box. Sophia, has anything stood out to you in particular over the last 2 days? Anything of note, of course, within your own Team Alpine, but also looking across the grid as well? What's impressed you and who perhaps has a bit of work to do?
Well, to be honest, I really just tried to focus on actually what Alpine was doing and try to listen in the radio communications and try to learn and understand setup changes and also kind of how big or small those changes are to that car and also comparison to me in F3 actually, because it's quite cool that we actually were testing here last week and it was similar issues a little bit, so it was really interesting to hear the opinion of the engineers and soak that in.
Yeah, to correlate and corroborate some of the data that you're seeing and the feelings you have, the sensations in the car too.
As well, correct, yeah.
Great, so I love that was a very diplomatic racing driver answer.
It was very strong, wasn't it?
That.
It was very strong. No one slammed. No one praised. Alpine forever.
Jolyon Palmer, we only have a few more moments of you left in the commentary box as well, sadly. You've had a good stint in here today. Your final thoughts before we let you go on some of the action from today?
Quite serene overall, hasn't it?
It has been a steady afternoon, I would say.
Yeah, it was a very steady morning and a short morning. But this afternoon, I feel like I've been rooted to this chair for a very long time. And I've seen plenty of decent action. I think the overall thing is a lot of teams are in better places than they were yesterday. That's an obvious thing to say. The lap times are coming down. They obviously are learning with every iteration of cars that we've got. And reliability generally, once again, has been very strong. Interestingly, Williams yesterday just did 61 laps between both cars with 2 issues. They were the only team to suffer major issues. McLaren, if they don't get back out, have done 72. So they've not much more than that. And they were a team that I think looked quite good today, but missing out on this mileage, whether you do 120 laps or 150 laps, it's not the end of the world, but dipping down to 70 laps, you're actually missing a fair amount at that point. So I think there'll be a team that would love to get back out for a little bit more, otherwise they might be ruining a missed opportunity today.
Sophia, before we let you go now, just to look ahead to the season then, the big aims for you in the opening few races?
Well, I think we just need to focus on quali performance, to be fair. I mean, it's 30 cars on the grid. You can obviously gain places in the race, but quali is also the main thing. So, finishing, as I said before, kind of top 10-ish in quali would be amazing. And then just go from there and see what we can do. But, I'm really looking forward to Rapper Ring again, which is my favorite track off the calendar. And then, in the end, the season is long, so we'll see.
Yeah, we can't wait to see what happens.
Cross your fingers.
Points are plenty, I'm sure. Fighting for podiums, we'll see. Thank you very much to you, Sophia,
Thank you
for joining us. Thanks to Jolyon as well for an almighty stint in the commentary box. And just as Power Hour is beginning, we will bid you farewell and goodbye. Alex Jakes will remain alongside me, but we might swap seats, Jakesy, I think.
It's fine. I'm over it. It's fine. Poor old Palmer gets his name on Power Hour, but doesn't get to commentate on it.
No, he did not, I'm afraid not. Alex, while we've got you in the pundit seat, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions on what you've seen over the last 2 days. Yesterday, when we sort of rattled through who were not the winners and losers, only day one of testing, for goodness sake, but perhaps those who'd had a good day and those who'd had a less good day, we put, obviously, the likes of Red Bull, RB, McLaren, Ferrari, Aston, Mercedes, to an extent, up towards those who'd had a good day. Williams, obviously, not a good day. For today, for day 2, what are you thinking? What does that pecking order look like? And would you be as brave as Will Buxton was as to put it out on Twitter?
Absolutely
on
not.
social media.
Absolutely not. Following Buxton on social.
He's
not
nailed his Constructors' Championship to the...
Is he going to do it every night? He's going to do it every night?
I think so, yeah.
He put Mercedes 6th.
I think he did. Yeah, I think he did.
That's not going to be right, is it? That's. I could predict that's not going to be accurate.
No, I don't think so. But no, your opinions, please. And I'm not asking for you to nail colours to the mast in quite the fashion that we're so used to seeing Will Buxton do. But what are your thoughts?
Obviously, fantastic day for a brand new concept for Red Bull yesterday. Some teams were like, listen, it's day one of testing. Other teams were a smidge terrified by what they saw from the World Championship Constructors. But I think everyone can be fairly content with what we've seen. Yes, we're in a stable year for the regulations, but this is completely unprecedented compared to what we would even see 5 years ago in terms of you get more interruptions in a practice session. So everyone's done a superb job. Williams have bounced back. That was their main task today, was to have a clean day. They've had a clean day.
They have. I was just looking for the lap count for Logan Sargent. It was 112 a minute ago, so
114.
114 now. There you go. You know which screen to look at in the commentary box, Alex. It's almost like it's your main job, isn't it? Yeah, look at that. 114 for Logan Sargent. A huge day for him.
Yeah, terrific. And remember, Sargent is coming in to a year where he has to perform to stay in Formula One. There's no two ways about it. So he needs that confidence that we were all talking about in the commentary box as well. But I think obviously encouraging day for Ferrari, getting lots of lap times in there, and they're looking, of course, on the long run pace. They know that they're quick over one lap, but I don't think anyone can be too downbeat given what we've seen. Again, with the exciting caveats that I know you love at home about the fact we don't know the fuel loads and we don't know the programs, but we do know that Formula One in 2024 is virtually bulletproof on the evidence of very nearly 2 days of testing. And so Sergio Perez is continuing on. I'm delighted to say that we've been joined by Anthony Davidson.
Hello.
Once again.
So this is what happy hour feels like, is it?
Oh, I like happy hour. Power hour.
Yes. Power hour Palmer has gone. Happy hour Ant is here.
If you are calling it happy hour, though, that has to come with the promise of some sort of beverage, no?
Oh, I only work in lap times, I'm afraid. Yeah, that's my kick.
Not a 2 for 1 then? Okay, right. No
But there might be. You never know. Might be out having 2 fastest times at the top, identical lap times. One a Red Bull and, I don't know, the Ferrari.
There we go.
Love it. Not quite the happy hour I'm used to, but I'll take it at this time of testing. No problem.
I'm happy to disappoint. I'm happy to disappoint. There we go.
Alex Albon was saying earlier in the commentary box it's a tank of champagne, apparently. And I have no idea. I mean, can I be clear? It does not. There is no champagne. There's been no champagne in here.
Rose water, clearly.
I don't know what sort of champagne he's drinking.
Yeah, it's sparkling rose water, isn't it? That's what they have on the podium.
That's what they have on the podium.
Yeah.
That's what they... Has he been on the podium here? I think he has been on the podium here. So yeah, he's completely all over the place. Is Mr. Albon with his smell radar? I don't know. This is what happens if you put me in the pundit seat. It doesn't work.
Smell radar.
Yeah.
It's hour 8, isn't it? Hour 7.
it definitely is. Sergio Perez there, continuing on. So he's been in that car all day, and it's 111 laps now for Perez on the board.
Yeah, so he might be able to match what Max did yesterday. Was it 142 from Max yesterday? It was in the 140s, wasn't it? Really impressive mileage. And I think that, like you were saying, the reliability of these cars now is across the board really is mightily impressive, especially when you think how complex the cars are. And as we come to this stage of day 2, it's nice to see that the teams have all had, and the drivers have all had a good fair share of laps under their belt. Some teams more than others, of course. I mean, we only had a couple of stoppages, and the biggest stoppage we've had has been because of the track, not the cars.
Which is wild, really, if you consider that this is such a dependable venue. But, just that wide. If you weren't with us earlier on, the wide moment over the curbs for Charles Leclerc, flicking up a drain that was then collected by the Mercedes. And the track inspection meant that we abandoned things slightly earlier than planned. We added on a bonus hour to the second part of the session. And we've got a safety car test to come at the end of the day, which is why we've got an extra 10 minutes as well.
A bonus happy power hour. Here we go.
need to sort the descriptions out by the time we get to it's not just testing for the drivers,
Absolutely.
apparently.
It's testing for all of us, that is for sure.
I mean, for us, obviously, the only thing we can really read into and what we get excited about is when they start putting on fresher tyres in favourable conditions like we have now, and actually conditions that replicate and mimic what we'll have next week in the race, in qualifying. They're representative conditions. That's why we're joking. I'm sure you've explained already why we're calling it happy hour. We're expecting faster lap times at some point towards the end of this. And that's really our biggest go-to in terms of us understanding really where the other teams lie. Of course, when they're doing long runs like Bottas is on now, the other teams will be there analysing every single lap. They plot it on their graphs. They can then look at the amount of fuel that they needed for that long run. We saw Perez out there earlier on. He was pounding around in the midday sun on a set of the harder tyre. And the other teams will be looking at, well, to do X amount of laps, you must have needed Y amount of fuel, and therefore if you take that fuel away, slap on a set of new tyres, that car can be capable of, who knows, like a 28 or a 27 lap time. And so there, you know, it's only when you get to do the amount of laps, you know, you'll be almost fully tanked for around the 90 to 100 kilos of fuel that these cars are capable of running. That's when you know to do that amount of laps, you take that away, and and then you can start looking at your own performance. You go, all right, well, if there is a 27 on the board there, if we took out the amount of fuel, how much fuel do we need to take out to do that lap time? And at some point, you won't be able to achieve it if your car's too slow, and that's when you start getting worried. But until we get to that point, it is just a bit of a guessing game as to who's running what fuel.
Sergio Perez went out there and set his fastest time of the day so far on a new set of the mediums and the C3s, as you can see with the graphic on the left-hand side of your picture at the moment, and did so in slightly more advantageous conditions than Lando Norris, but a 31.2 for Perez. And when we went on board with the Mexican driver, he's clearly using all of the curb and a bit more. So he's stretched his legs a little bit and come up with the third fastest time. Here's the driver with the fastest time of the day so far, but admittedly with a sizable compound advantage, running those C4 tyres that some teams haven't even brought to the test as we approach the final hour of running on day 2, pre-season testing. And the winner of the Singapore Grand Prix from last year, you're happy with his effort earlier on. He was watching when his teammate loosened that drain cover earlier on down at turn 11, was trying to get the marshals to throw the red flag before anyone hit it. And then who hit it? The car that he was going to be driving later on, to bring back unhappy memories of Las Vegas in the 2023 season. But good effort, you have to say, from Carlos to try and get a marshal to intervene at this corner of the racetrack where you take the widest possible line.
Yeah, the marshal did indeed intervene. It's just it just takes some time. There's a protocol we have to go through. The marshals.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely right.
He's flagged the situation to the race directors who are here as well, and they would have sprung into action, but it just takes time, I guess, slightly longer at a test than maybe what it would have been in a racing situation or a race week. But either way, I think you can always improve. Formula One, and safety is paramount, and so the issue is lucky really that Carlos was there. You had a racing driver knowing full well what was going on. Yeah. He was just doing, like I said, he was just doing the rounds around the circuit and just thought, I'll stop by at turn 11. There's a bit of a tricky corner today with the tailwind, etc., etc. And he's realised, hang on a minute, part of the drainage is loose. And then, immediately tried to gain the attention of the marshals. So not a normal situation, really.
No.
I spoke to Diego Hierveno on the pit wall just after that had happened. We had the red flag, and we were just about to have the early ending to that session. Of course, that was 3 hours this morning with 5 hours now. And he was sort of shaking his head in disbelief that once again a Ferrari has driven over a drain cover. Luckily not with quite the same impact that we saw with Carlos Sainz in Las Vegas, but he did make it clear the car was not okay. We had to change parts and the floor had to be replaced. It had to be removed and put back on. And of course, when I was down in the pit lane, we saw those barriers up at the garage indicating the floor was off the car, and a lot of work was being done behind them. But in also speaking to Enrico Cardile just after that as well, he said it's not put them on the back foot by any stretch, and they're comfortable with where they're sitting at the moment. Not reading too much into times, but Carlos Sainz is top of the timing sheets.
Speaking of times, I think Lewis is on a bit of a flyer here. Car sparking away, sure sign that it's running lower. Looks a little bit lighter to me. What's it going to be when he gets through this first sector? Yeah, personal best and only 2/10 away, so I could see it. It was on those shiny sidewall tyres, on the mediums as well, so the C3 tyre compared to the C4 of Sainz, so a little bit of a deficit there, particularly in Sector 1 when the tyre will be slightly cooler. Let's see how this unfolds. We go through turn 9 into turn 10. The car looks nicely poised, good exit, nice traction there as well. The car not moving around too much into that third DRS zone of the lap into turn 11. So we know there's a tailwind there pushing the car slightly wide. Earlier on he ran wide over that red and white curb. I don't think that was the case just now. Flat out through turn 12 he comes, 9/10 away at this stage of the lap, but another personal best. He's P7 at the moment in the overall running order. And once again we now on board 8th gear. Pick your braking point at the 100-metre board. The car a little bit reluctant to turn in initially, a little bit too safe almost for that front end. The rear could have taken more. Goes P2, but 1.1 seconds away. There's probably 4/10 in the tyre alone at least. I'm being pretty conservative with that. So yeah, it's encouraging sign I think for Mercedes, and more importantly the car looked good all the way through the lap. It had a very similar balance.
Esteban Ocon over the line to move to 7th position, 1:32.1 as he goes over the line. Improvement by 1/10.5 in Sector 1, increments in the middle sector, and then over 1/10.5 in the final sector. So step forward for him as well. And nice to see some personal bests being set down. So that is encouraging stuff there. But rather than looking at the lap times and the overall sectors, Mercedes will be taking what you said there with the greatest comfort. Looking balanced all the way through. They want something that's slightly more predictable. They don't want, in their words, that spiteful rear end that they talked about so much last year.
Well, it's been a rare thought that you turn that car into, say, like the final corner. I was fully expecting the car to be quite on edge, if I'm honest. That's what I've just become accustomed to with that car. And it wasn't. It was planted on the rear as he turned in, almost too much so. What are we looking at here with Sainz into turn 1? It's just a nice montage of replays of the fastest man out there at the moment. The car really hitting the deck there, though, isn't it? In a straight line.
Slowed that down for you, and we haven't got to the serious bumps yet.
No, they still... I heard Alex Albon talking about this earlier on, saying that they can run the car a bit softer perhaps than others out there, and you really see the car does move around a lot. Compared to the Red Bull, that is the car that seems to run the straightest, the truest down the straights in terms of its ride. And I haven't really watched the RB car that much. We see him warming up here. It's Daniel Ricciardo on an out lap, I think, on a shiny set of boots, which means you see it on the sidewall. It's the release agent. When the tyre's new, it's shiny, and as soon as the car starts to circulate on track, the compound that's touching the circuit gets a bit more dull, but the edges, the shoulder of the tyre, as I'd call it, remain. You still see that release agent, and so yeah, sure sign that he's warming up for another, potentially his fastest lap of the day.
We were entertained, weren't we, by Daniel Ricciardo and some of his runs yesterday. Jerry and Palmer, before he left, did predict we'd see something from Ricciardo, and we're seeing it right now, Jakesy.
Yeah, DRS open then, heading to turn number 1. And the man who wants to book his place back at the team he left all those years ago. He wants to go back to the senior team. He's with the RB at the moment. The RB has looked good at certain points. If you were cynical out there, maybe you'd argue that the team from Faenza occasionally looks good in testing and then find themselves in roughly the same part of the Constructors' Championship by the end of the year. But he's pushing on, and this is, again, it's only the second day of pre-season. We're getting used to these cars. They're all looking a major step forward from last year, and it's a personal best in Sector 1.
They really do, don't they? I mean, when I was standing at the circuit on the exit of Turn 7, it was pretty remarkable, actually, how much better every car looked up and down the grid. No matter what fuel load or tyre age they're on, they all looked a huge step forward from this time last year. It's pretty impressive to see that relentless progress in Formula 1. And Ricciardo making his own personal progress through turn 11 and 12. He was 4 tenths down in the first split. What's it going to be at the second? Yeah, so he's lost a second in just that second sector. I can't see anything wrong with it. The car maybe just looks a little bit heavy, perhaps, on fuel. It's not as lively as I saw the Mercedes, how that was reacting. Yeah, Ricciardo pushing on as hard as he can, nevertheless. Exits the final corner, not using all of the track actually on the exit there. A little bit conservative perhaps on his part. 32.0 puts him P6 for now. But I get the feeling watching that lap that he's got more in him and the car's got more as well. And that team traditionally goes really well around the circuit.
They do. Had some superb results around here in the past, including a 4th place for Pierre Gasly that immediately springs to mind. This is Lewis Hamilton down to turn 1.
So there the car really pivots well in the middle of turn 1. Can get on power nice and aggressively as well on the exit of turn 2. And a very different car I see compared to last year, how it behaves. Even into turn 4, where the rear usually goes light on the exit, it's pretty much there for him where he wants it. A little bit of understeer almost in the medium speed of 6 and 7. And they're learning this car. I can see they're learning this car. He's good in the slow speed. He's got the direction change he needs. He's got the front end there for him. But it seems like when they build up a bit of speed, the car is almost a little bit reluctant to turn in. So that's a huge change, a huge turnaround from the balance that car had from last year.
And one of the issues with the Mercedes from last season as well is that while of course they didn't have that stability and balance through the corners, nor did they have the slippery speed on the straights either. It was draggy on the straights, and then as the drivers said, it was unpredictable, didn't behave, a bit of a diva, as George Russell called it earlier, in the corners. So a really difficult car to drive.
But for me, this car that we're riding on board with now looks like a race car. It's the kind of balance you'd want to take into the race, with the front just being a little bit lazy, especially in the medium speed corners. You don't want to go harming the rear tyres for a long run around this track. We all know it's pretty savage, it's brutal on the tyre wear. It's like sandpaper, this surface now, with the stones protruding, the asphalt. And with this old surface since 2004, it's remained the same. And it really gives the tyres a workout. Just the surface, it overheats them, it rips into them, so the drivers know that. And with the balance of the car, you have to make compromises. Ideally, you'd want to go more forwards in your balance, like the balance we had in turn 1, like here. So the rear starts to move a bit there, so the tyre's getting hot. You want a balance not as extreme as that for qualifying, but much more, as we would say as drivers, on the nose. So by that I mean, when you turn in, it's like the front wants to go and the rear is like a big pendulum swinging round trying to keep up. And when you're on fresher tyres, it can take it. But that's a sure way to ruin the rear tyres in the race, and you'll be nowhere come the race halfway through a stint. So you know that's going to happen around this track, so you preempt it by engineering in a slightly understeery balance in the medium speed. That's really where you want the car to be. Yeah, like I say, a little bit on the lazy side. And you can't do all of that through aerodynamics. You're allowed to change the front wing after qualifying. You can take some front flap out of it and reduce the aero balance that would be more towards the front for qualifying, and reduce that more to the rear for the race. But the front aero balance alone, or the front flap adjustment alone, isn't enough. You need to do it mechanically as well. And that's what you have to carry through qualifying, unfortunately. If they had a free rein, you would end up quite often with mechanically quite a different setup of the car.
Carlos Sainz on the C1 tyre, continuing on. You saw Lewis Hamilton coming back to the pits. He's now done 119 laps today. He didn't run yesterday. It was all George Russell yesterday. Hamilton racking up 119 laps on the board, and the rest of the lap count there is on your left-hand side. Verstappen, Albon and Russell not running today. as per the team's agreement, and they will get their time again tomorrow. You've got day 2 with 48 minutes left, and some of that's going to be taken up with a test of the systems around the circuit and the safety car, virtual safety car as well towards the end. So everyone getting their mileage done. But I think across the board, obviously McLaren low on the lap count, you can see there with Norris and Piastri. Probably where you would start to look for, okay, has anyone not had a great day? But everyone else logging the laps.
It all depends on what you want to test in the car as well. If you've got bigger components that you want to change that take time, some of these component changes can take up to an hour to go through. And if you, like I was talking about earlier on, if you want to validate that by doing an ABA test or an ABAB test, it's going to be an hour each time. Sometimes it's a necessity, you have to get it done because you need to know before next week where you want to run the car.
Yes, this is the Grand Prix where they are able to get their eye in for the longest due to the nature. We used to have it at Barcelona for years, didn't we, where it was so familiar that the driver could probably do it with their eyes closed.
I never thought I would hear myself say the words, I really miss going around Barcelona and being there because we basically lived there this time of the year. It was our second home. I always used to joke, staring at that grandstand from inside the pit garage. It's burned into my retinas. And but I do miss it. I never thought I'd hear myself say that. I miss driving around the Barcelona circuit and seeing cars go around there and winter testing. It was the go-to track. We used to do it in the simulator as well because that's the place where you had all the data from, and it was just non-stop.
There was no escape. No escape.
Shackled to Barcelona. Yeah. But and now it's here in Bahrain, isn't it? We do the only tests before. It's a 3-day test. It's unbelievable. I mean, a decade ago, you would not have believed it if somebody told you, oh, I'll tell you what, in the future, you're only going to rock up, do 3 days of testing with one car, and then go straight into the race week. You'd be saying, no, get out of here. No way is that possible. You need much more testing than that.
It is amazing how it's taken a step forward. Carlos Sainz is a few moments ago. Ferrari with a bit of pit stop practice. It's new set fitted.
Yeah, it's good to go through all those motions as well. And again, you get to test this stuff back at the factory. They'll have a mule car that they'll use and use the tyres and all the mechanics to try and replicate what you'll do in the heat of the moment during a race. But it's never as good as even practicing here in the actual pit lane. Here at the circuit itself.
Someone go and get Jolyon Palmer and put him in front of the screen. Daniel Ricciardo has bolted on the C4 tyre.
Here we go.
Happy hour is about to raise a smile. It is Daniel Ricciardo attacking turn number 8.
Glory run-tastic.
Anthony Davidson, talk us around.
Yeah, so obviously he'll be enjoying more grip and better tyres than he'll have available to him next week because he goes through turn 10, exits there nicely, down that back straight with a tailwind, helping him along his way towards turn 11. Pick your braking point and ease the car into that one. It's important to get on the power very early there, and it's difficult for a driver when you suddenly get a set of tyres that has more grip potential. 1 second down rather than 1.4. So I'd like to assume my prediction of around 4 tenths is pretty spot on at this point because we're seeing that unfold with very, very similar track conditions. The driver would have found slightly more as well from himself, but let's see what it is through that the final couple of corners as he heads his way towards the line. Goes P5, 1.4 down, but a definite improvement all over in every single sector for Ricciardo with those softer tyres on the car.
It wasn't on rails, but how nice to see a Formula 1 car from 2024 looking darty and attacking the racetrack from RB to McLaren, where Ted Kravitz is standing by in the pit lane.
Thank you, Alex. Yes, hello everybody. Welcome back to the pit lane. Sorry I've been away. I've been doing some recording for tomorrow, not least talking to Alpine's Matt Harmon in preparation for a programme we do on the channel I work for, called Sky Sports F1. That's the channel called Development Corner. So I'll tell you about that in a second. Let me just tell you what's going on, as I think you're watching Adrian Newey or the Red Bull mechanics having a look around at the Red Bull. And wasn't it interesting that the Ferrari pit stop that we just had a replay of, in the mechanics were all in their fireproofs, and of some of the practice pit stops that Red Bull have done today and Mercedes, I haven't seen all of the mechanics in the fireproofs the way they would be at a normal race all the time. So nice little detail there from Ferrari. Down here at McLaren, I'm happy to report that this is not the end of Lando Norris's day. You might have seen him stalking the garage with fireproofs tied around his waist and looking like he wasn't going out again. They have actually finished the work that they were going to do with, what have we got, just over half an hour left, including various trials of safety cars, etc. But they can just about see Lando at the back of the garage getting his balaclava on and going out again. But if I can leave you just with that thought from Alpine's Matt Harmon on their car, don't count Alpine out so far. I know we've seen this, been a bit of a trend in testing sessions, certainly before last year and this year. They've done an awful lot to that car, especially at the back. They need to understand it. They need to reprogram the car around the changes they've made, and they're vaguely optimistic, pretty optimistic actually, so I should say, that they're going to be in amongst the mix. Maybe not specifically on the McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari level, but very close behind. Right, I'll leave you with what looks like an improving lap from Valtteri Bottas.
Thank you very much, Ted, as Valtteri Bottas comes over the line.
I think he's still on race runs.
Yeah.
Is Valtteri, and that's a classic. When
it's
you're
hard to tell
around
there.
6 seconds. Anything that's around 6 seconds off the pace, that's fuel. So it's around, with these cars, it's around 3.5, 4 tenths of a second every 10 kilos that you put into the car of fuel.
I thought it was bold of Ted to try and do it off the big screen. He was a long way from the big screen.
Yeah.
And trying to work out whether they were green sectors or yellow sectors.
Well, it's probably the car. There's so much green on it. It's just like the glow of green. Oh, he's a personal best.
Esteban Ocon from the Alpine team that Ted was just talking about, and interesting that they're getting the message out there.
Don't count us out.
Don't count us out, which is a bit of a contrast to what we heard from them last year, where they very much fancied their chances, and then this is the point of testing, to see whether the numbers that you get from your wind tunnel runs are the same as when you put the rubber on the road. And they had some real highlights last year, Alpine. They had both drivers on the podium with superb drives. They also, and they would say this as well, had some real lowlights. And then obviously quite a lot of turnover on the management side. So a reset, and I think for them to say, don't count us out, I think that means they're having a solid test. The problem is, so's everyone, aren't they?
They really are, yeah. And I mean, it's becoming more and more competitive. That's great to see in the midfield,
Yeah.
even towards the sharp end, I'd say. I really can't pick at this point whether it be a Mercedes, a McLaren, an Aston Martin or a Ferrari. I don't know. It seems super close. And then further down the field, maybe then you've got the Alpine, Williams, RB are probably ahead of both of those, in fact. But it's doing what we wanted with this new generation of F1 car, and the cost cap and the wind tunnel restriction time, etc. But apart from one team that still seems to have the biggest gap of all, ironically, is the team right at the top. So, well, let's see if that materialises for next week. But it seems to be the general chit-chat in the paddock. Yeah, wow, have you seen the times of Red Bull? It's effortless for them. Wow, it's super quick. How do we stop them? It's at the moment, it seems like it's very impressive from their side. But in terms of after them, I honestly can't choose who, from what I've seen so far this week, I can't see who's top, say, second best, for example.
That was the story of last season, though, wasn't it, as well? That the fight for second was so often the big event, the big story coming into each race weekend. And actually, we often said if you take Red Bull away, we are in for an almighty title fight. But unfortunately, because we were seeing a record-breaking history being made, we had Red Bull head and shoulders above the rest. The gap then closed, and we'll have to wait and see next race weekend whether that gap has opened up again, or indeed whether it remains relatively closed.
And here come your new tyres.
Here comes your answer, Laura Winter. Sergio Perez is heading out onto the circuit.
And Alex Jake, you are beaming from ear to ear.
I
can see it. You just,
it is a
twitching in his seat.
It is a bit ridiculous, but it's still wonderful to. This experience of seeing the cars early on used to be, when I started watching when I was a kid, used to be in the middle of the night with Murray and Martin talking over it, because you only got qualifying coverage. And now we are spoilt with going into the granular detail of what's to come and showing you all the liveries in advance and all the running, and we're able to pore over each intricate detail. But still, it's still wonderful to see, okay, now you're going to see a car attack the racetrack for the first time in a while. And we want an answer to see whether Perez can do what Verstappen did yesterday, and if Perez can demoralise the field in the way that Verstappen did with certain runs on the first day of testing.
The only solace you can take from it as well is that F1, if you look at it this way, it's just an ongoing science project. It is. That's what it is. These cars, it's like the F1 in schools, but on a massive scale. It's just an ongoing thing. Every car is bespoke. It's a project, and it's never ending. It's like a Gaudi building. They're never finished.
It's a science experiment with no sort of conclusion, an ongoing conclusion of we'll just get quicker and quicker and find ways to do so.
Yeah.
And you can see that innovation throughout the grid and up and down that pit lane this year, that even within the parameters of the regulations and the stable regulations we have as well in year 3, there are different iterations of how they've been interpreted up and down the pit lane.
That was Lando Norris going past. So
that was tight.
It was very tight, but the McLaren back on track after the issue then for the British driver, and Perez just checking the mirrors, making sure he's got enough of the racetrack to attack. He's got Norris out of the final corner going past Valtteri Bottas. They're both going past the commentary box. Bottas is going back to the pit lane, and here is the McLaren again.
I think Norris was on an outlap as well, reading the split times on. I think that was an outlap, so it wouldn't have been an issue going through turn 12. But yeah, no DRS used on that lap, so he might be pushing, but it's not to the maximum of what the car can do, at least in terms of the lap times. And it looks to me like it'll be more of a race run. The one I'm really interested in looking at is Sergio Perez behind him, as you say, Alex.
Yeah, Perez going nicely in the first sector. Looks like it's going to be a personal best for him. It is a personal best for the 28.9. And we go on board with, you see, and tasks and gets.
I think it's more luck than anything, but yeah, a couple of stabs at it he took through turn 8. He's a little bit unsure of that turn in there and misses it ever so slightly, if I'm being super critical there, in turn 10. Now down towards turn 11, got a pretty shot from behind the trees, and how early can he get on power here? Up the hill, it really climbs pretty steeply here through turn 12.
Really blind, isn't it?
Yeah.
As you come up.
And I would say for a lap that really hasn't been his best, that's just 4 tenths down. Down towards turn 14 now. He's got Norris in front of him, but he's not going to pick up any turbulence from that distance, thankfully. And that's much more like it. On the curve, on the exit, no more he could have really done there, but loses further time. 7 tenths away goes P2, personal best all round for him.
Yeah, 130.6, Perez, who was pushing, but it seemed to come back to him as the lap went on. He seemed more dialed in towards the end than he was maybe at turn 8, maybe at turn 10 as well. Still, the soft tyres bolted to Daniel Ricciardo's car.
And is that a genuine difference of lap time that we're looking at there between Perez and Hamilton? I start to look at the way the car didn't look very light. It wasn't that nimble. It didn't really do what he was expecting. and the difference between Perez there on a 30.7, should we say, 30.6, and Hamilton 31.0. So for me, that seems like it could be pretty genuine, that kind of difference between those two. And then you put Max in the car, with all due respect to Checo, and I would assume Max could extract a little bit extra, at least around this circuit. And then you're looking at a similar distance to what they were around this track from last year. If you're looking at if Mercedes were best of the rest, I don't know. But for me, that seems like they're running the cars in a pretty similar state.
Let's just see this first sector for Daniel Ricciardo, who makes his way out of turn 4 and threads the needle. No personal best for him on the C4 tyre, so it's time to go downstairs to Ted, who's at Williams.
Thank you, Alex. Yes, Williams really wanted, and is it fair to say they needed a strong end to the day? Well, I think that's probably fair to say. It doesn't look like they're going to get it. There's a problem with the front left hub, wheel hub. There's something not quite together in there, and I think we're about to see Logan Sargent decide whether it's going to be the end of the session or not. They're doing some more work on it. They had to loosen it up to actually remove that part of the hub. It's all together with the brake cooling and the fairing that goes up like that you can see, to actually find out. They actually had to put a small camera into the middle of the whole assembly to see what it was that wasn't quite tight enough. So they're tightening up at the moment. Logan is still in the car, but yeah, lots of mechanics sort of looking at each other saying, are we going to get this out for one last go? Optimistically, I think with, what have we got, 22 minutes left, I think they probably will manage to do it. But yeah, it's lost about 15 minutes while they investigated that issue.
Thank you, Ted, for that update down there. Williams trying to extract every moment they can out of the remaining running. 32 minutes on your clock, 22 minutes referenced by Ted is the time to the top of the hour. Then we're doing a bit of testing, including race control, who sent a message about an hour ago saying this is a test message, which was terrific of them. Thanks for that, guys. We're looking at Perez.
It looks like a little bit of extra urgency down there at Red Bull, doesn't it? I don't know what they're looking at the rear of the car as well, just preparing it for another run clearly. But yeah, they're running it looks like a bit of a tighter program now at this time of day at Red Bull than we've seen. Maybe slightly more relaxed feeling earlier on in the day when they were practicing or focusing on the longer runs. Bless you, Alex. You did turn off your microphone, but mine picked it up. Unfortunately for you.
It was a sneezy cough, which I can only apologise for.
Sort of turned towards me as well. You turned away from the microphone,
from you.
but towards in my direction.
No.
I'm honoured, Alex Yates.
That is not what happened. I'm miles away. How dare you say such things?
I'll be thrown out. This is not my natural habitat, is it? I better watch what I'm saying.
This was my commentary box once. Once upon a time. Okay, 30 minutes to go, 20 minutes of running, then a little bit of procedural practice. Thrilling to end day 2. But it's great that we've had the softer tyres, the lower fuel runs, cars actually out there attacking the racetrack. Your reward, if you've been with us all day, is not just hearing the general chit-chat, but actually seeing the cars darting around like we love it. The battle for Q3 to get in is going to be such fine margins. Feels like it's been that way, but you can't count anyone in and you can't count anyone out at the moment. We all know who they're chasing, but it's looking very, very even out there as Norris logs another lap.
So already looking at the 29.9 from Sainz. I know it's on the C4 tyre, but I just looking at the times from last year's pole position of a 29.7 from Verstappen, you just wonder, should you have a bit of a bet now what the pole time will be?
It's Will Buxton. I mean, it's Will Buxton who usually chucks his money away at this time of...
Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. He does. He puts 50 quid on the table and bets something ludicrous, like Fernando Alonso to win the first race of the season. And it's, 50
quid was Jolien's money.
Well. Jolien's quid's in normally. I think he's got double or nothing this year, hasn't he?
Does Palmer even claim it?
No, he hasn't claimed it. So Will is
He's going to call it his debt one day.
Will has gone double or quits for this season, and it's going to be something. It's going to be another ludicrous prediction that he's going to make today, considering he had his constructor standings pecking order nailed to the mast on social media after day one.
If you see Will Buxton flogging something that he wasn't before, you know Palmer's called in the debt from years of bold predictions gone wrong.
Let's do a bet on the... Go on.
On the poll time, what are you going for?
29.7.
Smartest analyst in the room.
29.7 did I say, pole position last year.
You did.
You're already 29.9, but that is on the C4 tyre. 29... No. 20... Oh yeah, we had a whole season of development on top of that. So I'm going to go...
Don't rush him.
28-2.
28-2.
That's a chunk of time, isn't it?
It could be quicker.
I'm going to say a 28-7. Conservative? Maybe.
I reckon, yeah.
Do you?
Yeah. If they've already done a 29.9 in second day of
On the
open
C4.
testing.
On the C4. Well, that's 410.
It's a 410, but it is a Ferrari, it's not a Red Bull, which we're predicting to be faster. So it might be a bit slow.
We haven't said what we're betting.
No, the terms of this have really fallen apart.
What's your prediction? Pole lap time around Bahrain.
Should we go for a 28-0? Should we go super bold? Because, of course,
It's punchy.
driver making the difference. Pedro will start worrying about who's that race.
He really will.
Pedro.
If his pole is that time.
Pedro is worried. I can confirm. Aston Martin.
So we're going to turn the wick up of the performance of the cars. We're going to lay down loads more rubber. Another 8 hours of rubber goes down.
Yeah.
You've got FP1, FP2, FP3.
Drivers
Not a lot goes on in FP1. Please still watch, please. Otherwise I'll get a block caps email. Right, but please still watch FP1. But it's a slightly lazy start to the year, isn't it, for FP1? After all this running that we have, 24 hours of testing as they get some pit stop practice in down there at Alpine. FP2, thrilling, representative. FP3, final changes. Quali hour, moments arrived.
That's exciting, isn't it? Everyone you speak to says this isn't enough time in testing, and also I think the other statement that's being peddled about is that the winter seemed incredibly short as well, and January sort of went by fairly steady pace, and then February has just flown by, and now suddenly we are mere days away from qualifying. What day is it today? Thursday? I keep saying weekend, and it isn't, is it? It's a Thursday today, so that will be...
You're in race mode already.
That will be
why.
free practice this time next week, of course. Qualifying on the Friday night, race day on the Saturday for the first 2 races of the season here in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. So yeah, this time next week we'll be seeing some FP2 glory runs in power hour.
And then you really can't hide what you've got underneath you. And there are no excuses. But McLaren, perfect car to have on screen. McLaren showed what's possible if you get off to a poor start, if you understand where the problems are. Understanding of where to fix, absolutely key. Haas yesterday, just doing runs to understand the tyres. They know that you can talk about all the updates, you can talk about all the one-lap pace until they understand how to go long on a set of tyres without lunching them like they did at most circuits. Then they're going to constantly be fighting with one hand behind their back.
I spoke to Nico Hülkenberg earlier on today, actually, and he was keen to point out that this car is an improvement to what they had for last season, and that those perennial issues with the pace on the Saturday, the promise, the optimism through qualifying, just falling away come race day, where, as you say, they would just destroy the tyres, race pace would fall away, and so often all that early potential of points would fly away as well. They're hoping and they feel they may have taken a step towards a solution there.
The sparking of that Mercedes. Very
really
dramatic.
Really running it low, aren't they? I mean, the car actually wasn't moving around that much. It's just, we saw this quite reminiscent from the Red Bull, actually, from last year, I would say. Loads of sparks would come out of it, but the car wouldn't move around, no porpoising. Now, I did see a shiny set of tyres here. He's 3/10 down. It's not a personal best even through the first sector. But I just wondered, has he taken another set, or has he just backed off for a couple of laps and started pushing again, just to really cool the the surface down of those tyres.
I think from the graphic that it's the same set again.
I think he's just had a few cool-down laps and is pushing again, but he's certainly going for it. And he wasn't far off, actually. I can see in the mini sectors within Sector 1, there are quite a few personal bests there. So what's this second sector going to be? It is a personal best, and it's within the second, actually. It is wide in turn 13, though. Hustled the car a little bit too much, perhaps around that part of the track, but it goes to show that there was quite a bit of fuel on board for the lap where we ended wide again in the final corner, just really getting a little bit, pushing the car a little bit too much, expecting too much from it in many ways, but great to see he has that confidence to be able to push it to those kind of levels. I didn't expect to see another. That's why I questioned whether it was on another set of new tyres. I didn't expect to see one personal best during that lap at all in any of the sectors. Here's a replay of the fireworks display.
We saw the Sauber earlier similarly sparking, and the Ferrari as well, and obviously teams are going to be experimenting with ride heights here, and it is a bumpy track as well, we have to say.
Yeah, very aggressive with the ride height there, as Hamilton trying to extract something on a second push lap on these tyres, but that felt very aggressive in terms of ride height.
Dramatic pictures for us to look at, though. We're enjoying them up here. I'm sure.
Watch this one coming up here. This is where the big bump. This is the bump that got the better of Sargent yesterday. Look at the sparks there from the titanium skid blocks underneath.
This is back to the future stuff.
It's amazing.
Look at this. Wow.
Oh, get that in the opening titles. Magical.
That's cool.
That's a great shot.
Beautiful shot.
Ted Kravitz wants to join our conversation on this. I'm being reliably informed.
Well, if you're talking about Back to the Future, then Checo Perez is going to go into the past, change some setups, and then go out again and see if he can better that time. It's another set of new tyres for Sergio Perez. He's just passed me in the pits, so he's on an out lap, so give it a minute and 20 seconds, and you can pick Checo up again to see what he's going to do on yet another set of the C3s.
Yeah, well done, Ted. Yeah, I thought we could see a bit of, like we mentioned, a bit of urgency down there to get that car turned around. That's what they were doing. They were going back on a setup change, and then they're going to do that back-to-back by putting another set of tyres on it just to see, does this make it, do we go back to the right direction of setup? Because to be fair, you know, that was a pretty impressive lap time for how difficult the car looked to drive, I thought, during Checo's lap.
Yes, that's a very good point, because he wasn't hooking up every apex.
Exactly. It was a bit scruffy. I think he was expecting something from the car, and it wasn't really delivering. So they've made that change.
It's very nearly time for take two. He's going to go again, and we can hear Anthony Davidson mark his homework as he makes his way through the 15 turns of Bahrain International.
So yeah, you can see keep a check on the halo display. You've got the DRS open there, and the speed, kilometres an hour and miles an hour at the bottom, and then the throttle in green to the right-hand side. On the brakes, into turn one we go. Get that apex, get the car turned nice and straight there. Oh, and the rear just complained a bit, didn't it, on that initial phase of traction, even before turning into turn two. That takes away a bit of confidence for exiting this corner coming up, turn four. But there the car looks slightly better. He's got a bit more speed exiting that corner. He's got a personal best. And now, as we saw with the car last time around, it started to get better as he went through the lap. Still taking a few stabs at that turn 8. He's not confident with the front end there. It's actually better than what he's expecting in many ways. Down towards turn 10. This is where he missed the apex last time. Nailed it this time on the entry, and a perfect. You cannot take it any better than that. That was brilliant in turn 10 by Perez. So now towards 11, get a bit more of the track on the right-hand side. Turn it, and again, the front just seemed to react a bit more sharply than he was expecting. Is he flat through 12? Watch that graphic. Yes, he is. And he's lost a bit of time, not a personal best, through that second sector. Interesting. Now down that back straight towards the final braking zone of the lap. Look at the braking marker boards on the left-hand side. Brake at the 100. Feed the car in. Looks good at least in that part of the corner. and he's got the rear for him there, nice and secure on the exit as well, and goes personal best again in the last sector. So improves his overall lap time. It looked better. It still wasn't perfect. There's more to come from that balance of the car for him.
Yeah, improved sector 1 by 100th of a second, improved sector 3 by 300ths of a second, but crucially was hooking up more apexes than he did last time. So a step forward for Perez with his fastest time of the day, a 1:30.6.
Yeah, interesting from Perez there. The thing I'm mostly surprised about is the fact that the rear let go for him even before turning into turn 2. I wasn't expecting that at all, and I don't think he was. Completely caught him out. But then when the car built up a bit of speed in turn 4, even though he was wary of the rear, it really responded well. So in that particular corner is excellent traction and stability, like the last corner was as well. We watch more sparks fly, this time from the wheel gun.
Yeah, Gallery having a terrific time of bringing you all the sparkling shots they can find at the moment.
This is a car I'm interested in for this racetrack in particular, a track it really suited the car. Last year, of course, surprised everyone. This time last year in testing, we all spotted it. We all said, wow, this car has made a huge improvement over the 2022 season. And every time I've been on track, every time I've seen that car out on track, it just looks good. It looks easy to drive. And I wonder, I don't know where to place this team at the moment. I'm not sure I don't think they've got the legs on the competition like they had last year in testing. But I strongly believe they haven't run the car to anywhere near its true potential yet.
Laura, they seem fairly content down at Aston Martin, don't they?
Yeah, they do, based on the conversations I was having with them, both on and off air, speaking to Tom McCulloch earlier, and he was sort of chuckling away, as I mentioned, Pedro de la Rosa's lap time and his lap record here, and whether it would be an Aston Martin driver who may beat that, how much more they've got left in the locker here. I think everything has gone to plan for them. I think, they're not the headline that they were last year. They haven't made that enormous jump from P7 to P2 that we saw this time last year, where everybody was talking about, could they be the ones to take it to Red Bull for this season? And obviously the leaps you can make from P4 are that much harder and that much smaller to actually make, but they're still there in and amongst it, and I think everything is going their way. The car an evolution of what we saw last year rather than a complete revision. And
yeah, definitely. I mean, like I say, I'm still yet to see that level of performance that we saw from last season at this track, but so far I'd say one car that's really struck me is this car here, the Mercedes. It's such a difference from the car we were watching last time at this track, and I think Lewis is on another new set here actually, so he's dialed himself in. He's had 2 goes at it. Penny for his thoughts, behind the wheel there. What's he thinking on the build-up to this lap?
that lap that you talked us through earlier on, that 1:31.066, was everything you were saying about the car, the way it behaved through the corners, in a sense that it wasn't behaving through those corners last season for them, and it was still draggy on the straights as well. You could see how lively it was. You were saying it was aggressive in how it was sparking, aggressive in the ride height. You can visibly see the difference to this Mercedes, and especially it seems to be coming alive under the bright night lights as well. It's exciting to watch this Mercedes, actually.
And Lewis is one of those drivers that will naturally chase the balance. I'll put money on the fact that he's gone into this second run on that new set dialing in a bit more front end into that car, because I think it would have been surprising him, maybe in a good way, in thinking of the race balance, that, oh, we got the virtual safety car out there. Surely not. What's happened? Who has, I'm trying to look at the circuit map, anyone stopped out there?
It's the procedure, isn't it? It's the testing.
I thought we were going to get this with 10 minutes to go, but they've gone early with it. They've gone early with it, and Hamilton comes back. I'm not sure anyone was expecting it at this stage, because you wouldn't send your car out on fresh tyres, and they were definitely new tyres.
They were new, weren't they?
Yeah, for Hamilton. And he's come back to the pits. And now we're doing the systems check. Yeah, then we were looking forward to seeing the Mercedes attack the racetrack.
I just looked out the commentary box window, and they are indeed just wheeling the car back in on the trolleys back into the garage.
All right, testing the systems, making sure that everything works.
We got all excited then, didn't we? We were gearing up for
What
a
could have
glory
been?
run from Lewis Hamilton under the lights in Jolyon Palmer's Power Hour, but not to be. The safety car is out.
There we are, cycling through then from virtual safety car to safety car to red flag. Everyone will come back, and will they reset? We'll give them time for one last attack of the racetrack, but the red flag out. So we were expecting this towards the end of the session.
Yeah, like you say, with 10 minutes to go, I thought that was the plan. Clearly not.
Plan has been updated, Mr. Davidson. News to me as well as news to you, as you can probably tell at home. Hope you've had a terrific day, wherever in the world you are. Thank you for joining us for day 2 of pre-season testing. We're going through a little bit of admin at the moment, and then hopefully we can still give you some attacking laps towards the end.
Bit of housekeeping, isn't it? And you even said, again, I'd put money on. Clearly a betting man in the box today. Do we have a wager for that pole lap time?
No, that's just a pride thing, I think.
Pride.
With the fastest
Invaluable.
time. I was.
Can't put
It's
money on
like
pride.
we had the virtual safety car at the time. I was speaking like virtually Monopoly money. I put Monopoly money on the fact that I can hear Kroon Chandok chuckling from here. He thinks I'm the tightest man on the planet. I think what I was going to say was that we'd see improvements from that lap from Lewis. Definitely, we saw it with this guy here on screen on his second attempt, and of course we would have seen it from Lewis as well. I'm pretty sure he was on new tyres.
Yeah, he was. So
the graphics said it. We spotted it over the sheen to the tyre, and yeah, I think
so we've cycled through all of that. We've gone from virtual safety car to safety car message on screen, and just checking that the driver's seeing that on the LED panels on the steering wheel as well. And now we've got a queue at the end of the pit
with Lewis right at the front. So I do think, yeah, they're looking for the clear circuit, aren't they? As soon as it goes green again, so that they can utilise the freshness of those tyres still.
So will they
I don't think that was part of the plan. I'd be surprised if that was part of the plan. Yeah, let's do an outlap on brand new tyres, box it for a little bit.
Never going to be the case.
I don't think so.
Be the case. And the race begins down to the end of the pit. This is what you want after a long 2 days of testing. A sprint to the end of the pit lane. McLaren personnel on site. He's on board with Valtteri Bottas, who's getting a good inspection of the Mercedes on the left and the McLaren on the right. So he's got not much else to do. And if this goes vaguely according to some logic, I reckon when we get to 10 minutes, we might get a green light at the end of the pit lane. But we're currently waiting.
So at 10 minutes we were supposed to have an actual safety car on track. Was that the plan?
I think they were just testing the message. Right, there we go. So they've gone early with the green light. DRS has been enabled according to race control. Has Lewis spotted well, no one's gone out at the moment, so they're waiting for... Oh, we've resorted to the flag. It's all going very well.
It's very orderly, isn't it?
Here we go. That was, they were waiting for the official...
No, after you.
Yeah, very un-Formula One for all of 10 seconds. And now everyone heading back out onto the circuit. Maybe they wanted to surprise everyone with the test, rather than just have a situation where everyone's like, right, there's going to be a test. Let's go and put it in the garage. Let who's out there. And it's got formation lap vibes. This fantastic. The message is the safety car will enter the pits. There's no safety car out there. So the message that they're testing on the screen, race control, intimidating place, race control. I always pop my head in to have a look at what they're dealing with, to remind myself that it's a very high-pressured place to be when you're calling the shots for a Formula One Grand Prix and intimidating number of screens.
Did it feel like bring back memories of heading towards the head's office at school?
Yeah, I didn't stay for very long. I'm not really sure I better go in there, but it's only testing. It's only testing.
Yeah, give me that pass, Jakes.
What are you doing here again?
Yeah.
Oh, that takes you back. we're now effectively, so we're in the procedure of safety car will enter the pits rolling start procedure. So we're effectively on a restart lap. So drivers building temperature, playing along with the test, if you like. Then hopefully everyone will be released. Usually what we get at this point is that someone thinks it's hilarious to send one to the inside of turn number one.
Especially if it was Lando behind Lewis there or Valtteri Bottas. Brave stuff from him, but he has to protect those tyres on the outlap and get the best of them there, but he's not. No, so they're doing a different type of procedure here, aren't they? Yeah,
they're waiting. Here we go. How many wide are about to go? Great idea of the speed as they fly past down there to turn number one. Cars absolutely everywhere. Hamilton maintaining the head of the pack. Norris putting the pressure on. I'll behave myself. We can wait for the real thing.
You should be practicing too. This is it, the real deal.
Don't you normally do an impression of a lead commentator at this time of the year?
Never.
That was my favourite part of testing last year.
Very good. Bottas, he's not enjoying this, isn't he, on the slightly older tyres. He's got the Red Bull. Look at the difference there of grip.
Come on, that's far too sensible. What? Come on, you're going to have to do your lead commentator impression.
Come on, Valtteri, send it down the inside. Look, he's gone for it. He's absolutely gone for it down the inside. There you go, Lando.
You can't.
You heard it here first. Sauber have the upper hand on McLaren.
And they're all swanning about behind Lewis, which, well, the majority of the Formula 1 field we're used to for a long period of recent history.
Here comes Ocon. Gets the move done on the exit of turn 10. Look at the traction on that Alpine.
Whatever the teams and drivers were told to do, we were not aware of what it was going to be. But that's what the grid for 2024 looks like in close formation. And then the race control, the FIA, they are looking for the knowledge that everything's working. The drivers are receiving the message, and this was a simulation of a rolling restart. Lewis Hamilton taking us back to full racing speed, and a sight and an image to whet your appetite for the real thing coming your way. Grand Prix Saturday to start things off for the start of the season. Sparks flying, magic pictures.
That was quite good, actually. You could even hear the floor
spark.
hitting. You could hear the floor hitting the ground in slow-mo.
Shower of sparks as they're all over the road.
They're coming up to the grid now. So now we've seen our safety car restart. Now we've got the start. So this is where
Here we go, Jake.
you got to take this away, Alex. Come on. It's your time to shine, buddy.
The light's going to go out. I don't own that line, so
go on, do it.
Absolutely.
Do it. Oh, come on.
I will get a block cap
I'll
message.
do it for you then.
Go on,
Right,
yes.
I'll do that bit.
You're
and
allowed.
Then you take over.
You're allowed. The lights have not come on.
That's clearly a jump start.
Anthony Davidson's
Gone
moment.
napping.
The lights did not illuminate.
I reckon that was Crofty from back at home.
Say, don't you dare put them on. Don't you dare put them on the gantry. You don't turn up for testing.
Oh, I'm disappointed.
I was looking forward to hearing you call.
Surely that's a full start. They'll be coming around again. I owe the orange lights.
Someone get him a message. At this stage of the broadcast, if it's news to us. It's a magical mystery tour at the moment. That's what it looks like. We're even testing the live speed graphic. Everyone's getting some practice under their belt. Matt, you forget how ridiculous the acceleration is, and then you see it in numerical form. And red flag test is back.
Yeah, that really did highlight it, didn't it? Just watching the car with having the speed. It's quite good, actually. Maybe we should see that for the start of the race anyway, just on the pole position car.
Yeah.
Just the acceleration and just leave that graphic up there before turn one.
It's such a basic, isn't it? It's such a metric used for road-going vehicles, but you forget how quickly these things travel in the first few meters and seconds of a Grand Prix.
So there, I mean, you're going to see what did they go up to? Over 200 kilometres an hour, quite comfortably, before braking again and slowing down to just 60 or 70 for turn one. And when you look at what a relatively short distance it is down towards turn one, the amount of speed these cars can pick up and then shed as well before entering the first corner, I think that's having graphics like that on the screen, it really hits home for fans watching on. Because a modern day hypercar, for example, can do the acceleration bit. It can't do the stopping bit.
No, absolutely not. And you always hear that. We had Sophia Flörsch in here earlier. You always hear a driver talk about going from Formula 3 to Formula 2 and the shock that provides. And then a Formula 2 driver making the move up to Formula 1, and suddenly the constant changes. Oh, a bit of flair in the pit lane. The changes corner by corner. And smooth moves by the man they called Speedy down in the pit lane and getting everyone's testing. I love it. Bit of pit stop practice. Intrepid camera crews down there in the pit lane. What a hard job. You've got to be a master diplomat as well as one of the best camera operators in the world, because you've got to know where to stand, where to move. You will get yanked out of the way, as we've seen time and time again, if you're even in the wrong position by an inch down there.
I was moved behind barriers when I was down there yesterday. I was sort of pushed out of the garage. I think it was Aston Martin. I was just politely told, but firmly told, to move back away from the car.
And we've got 3 minutes on the clock, but it looks like we're winding down for the day.
On pit stop practice, actually, obviously every single team is going to want to be finding those tenths, those hundredths in the pit stop, as they do in every element, every facet of Formula One. But I found it interesting that in pre-season, Mercedes actually making a point that across the board, yes, obviously the improvements made to the car, and we're seeing that through the corners in the balance, and hopefully on the straights as well in terms of straight line speed, but also in pit stop performance they wanted to make a real step on, and that was an area they really were focusing on, an area of weakness from last season.
I think it's an area where they could definitely improve.
4 tenths, I think, is what
okay, I don't know the exact figures.
The exact figure was, I think it was said 4 tenths, 3 to 4 tenths.
They were never, I think, consistently. They were consistent, but they weren't consistently challenging the fastest pit stop of the day. And I think, if you're working on car performance, trying to find valuable tenths of a second from any avenue that you can think of, and then you're throwing away tenths of a second in the pit stop, then surely that has to be looked at as well. So yeah, an all-round improvement hopefully coming their way down at Mercedes, but it's not easy to turn the car around in a pit stop like that. It's one of the great spectacles of F1 and challenges of F1.
I know we sit here and say 4 tenths as though that's a simple solution, and we're talking about a 2-second pit stop with 4 tyres coming on and off a car. I mean, it is extraordinary what those guys down there can do, guys and girls.
Absolutely. The teams have reached the end of the day, and everyone has pushed the cars back to the garage. The red light is illuminated at the end of the pit lane, and they've done the systems checks at the end of a very busy day. Again, really high numbers in terms of mileage. Fastest driver is Carlos Sainz, 84 laps to his name. Sergio Perez has turned 129 laps for Red Bull today. Lewis Hamilton, 123. And just to round out the top 5 that you can see on the left-hand side, Lando Norris, 52, issue with fuel pickup there for McLaren, and Daniel Ricciardo at 88 for the newly named RB. And the debrief and the discussions underway. And that is day 2 in the books. And we have just 8 hours then between us, the end of pre-season testing tomorrow on track, and then the beginning of the longest ever Formula One season, 24 Grand Prix for the first time, appropriately, in 2024. What stood out today for both of you? Anthony, tell us first.
I think what really stood out for me today was just the marked difference with the poise of the Mercedes compared to last year. I think they were in trouble here last year, and it showed the whole way through the race weekend. It wasn't an easy time for them. Everyone was expecting quite a big turnaround from 22, the troubles of the porpoising car, and thought it was going to be the difference we're seeing this year in just how much easier it seems to drive and how much better balanced it is in all aspects, I think, even down this bumpy pit straight. And I think that's the thing that's really stood out for me.
Laura, how about you?
Yeah, I agree actually with Ant, and certainly what we've just seen in the last 2 hours here with how that Mercedes began to really come alive. I think equally, though, the pace of the Ferrari, I know we expect it based on where they sort of finished at the end of last season, where they were thereabouts in 2022 as well, of course, mounting that early challenge. So I think that the speed of the Ferrari has impressed me, for sure. I think just across the board, no one's had a terrible day, have they? Steady eddies all round.
Which is what you will take for testing. Glorious picture of the moon to finish off what was a very cinematic power hour. Enjoyed that. Carlos Sainz is your top driver on day 2. 129.9 on the C4 tyre. Soft tyre run for him, but one that takes him a long way clear of the field. The rest of these improvements were later on, and you've got Sergio Perez in second, then Hamilton in third, Norris, Ricciardo, Leclerc, Stroll, Ocon, Bottas and Piastri. Sainz did 84 laps, Perez did 129 in the car all day, Hamilton 123, to give you the details on the mileage as well. Then it was Logan Sargent ahead of Fernando Alonso. It's testing times to take all of this with a pinch of salt. And then Zhou Guanyu in 13th, Gasly, Magnussen, Hulkenberg and Tsunoda. We will see Max Verstappen, Alex Albon and George Russell tomorrow. And here's what we've got. After 2 days, more of the same, but the last 8 hours for the drivers and teams to understand the machinery that they have underneath them for Formula One in 2024. The last chance to dial things out before we're into the real thing, and the first Grand Prix weekend of 2024. Well, my thanks to Anthony and to Laura. It has been a fantastic day in the commentary box, and so much to enjoy. Tomorrow, we're going to do it all again. 8 hours of running when Formula One returns.
Fabi, what sort of mood is Franz in today?
No, it seems okay.
Up to now in a good one.
Oh, hey, great. Well,
but I think
we can change that for you.
it will change.
Yeah.
If a young driver comes to us, he has to run through different periods. The first one is he's a passenger in the car. Drivers hate to hear this. They think they have it under control. They have nothing under control. The mechanical side, this is period 2. How does the car feel? Is stiffer or with a softer spring or whatever. The third period is to understand the aerodynamic. How does the car feel with less front wing, more rear wing, and so on and so on. The fourth period are the tires. This is not an easy one. The last is you control the environment. You can read the race, build up a strategy. This is real understanding.
Franz, you're stepping down after 18 years as a team principal. You have a reputation as the hard man of Formula One. What kind of a boss have you been to the people in Faenza?
This you must ask the people.
Yeah, it could be hard, yeah. Franz lives for racing, he lives for Formula One. He often told me it's a shame we don't have a race on the 25th of December.
Franz is very, very hands-on. He's in every meeting, every debrief we go to. He's very matter-of-fact as well. If we do well, he'll tell us. If we don't, he'll tell us.
He's very tough and strict with the people he works with, but he has this same dedication on himself, so he'll be the first one to show up at work. I quite like this sort of mentality.
And I think that for everyone that joins a team, it's obviously a good leadership to follow.
You know, I've been interviewing him since, he first came into Formula One with Toro Rosso. You would speak to him and then 2 minutes later he would sprint past you in some sort of lycra outfit because he was absolutely obsessed with fitness.
We had just done a whole day and I had done like 150 laps. And he said, yeah, put your running gear on and we meet down the pit lane. I said, Franz, what do you mean? Yeah, we're gonna run the track. 7 p.m, it's dark already. We ran 2 laps of the track together and he was fit, I was impressed.
And then we had Mark Webber's 40th birthday party. Mark was adamant that Franz needed to have his birthday cake. Franz was like, I do not eat carbohydrates after 8 o'clock at night. I measure my food in grams. Get this dreadful cake away from me. I don't want any part of this. I'll say happy birthday and good night. And he stood up and left. But that is also very Franz. He was not to be moved.
At the beginning, some small discussions and troubles. People then got used to me and we then had a fantastic cooperation.
Franz Tost said recently that drivers shouldn't earn more than 10 million a year. What is your opinion of the salary cap?
Who said that?
Franz Tost.
Who's that?
So in the world that we live in at the minute, we've really seen that team principals have become some of the protagonists of the sport, but maybe less so for team bosses like Franz Tost. Franz is really at the racetrack for one reason, and that is to go racing.
He really cared about Formula One. He really cared about motorsport. We almost thought of him as a secret team boss. Franz wanted to be a driver, won junior categories. And then decided that he wasn't going to be good enough.
I was rolling around, otherwise I would have been successful in Formula 3 as well or something like this.
Very typically Franz, so he changed direction.
He was ruthlessly efficient, so he was at university, but he was still working.
I worked also as instructor in the Walter Lechner Racing School for many years.
It was there that he would work with young drivers who are kind of bidding to become racing drivers, maybe get to Formula One day. And it was his first real opportunity to kind of work with drivers, to manage drivers, pick up some skills of how to maybe calm them down or G them up. That time was his school as much as it was the driver's school, because it was there that he realised he loved the mentoring side of the job, and that has ultimately become his greatest skill to bring through some of the greatest racing drivers in the world.
Franz did all the hard work before he got to Formula One, which I think is crucial because you're jumping from a small pond into a pit of piranhas, and he was ready for that.
So in the early 2000s, Franz moved to BMW, and he was the trackside operations manager.
I was responsible for the complete operational side between BMW and Williams in those days.
So already in his first job in Formula One, he had a very, very big role to fill.
All these factors together brought me a knowledge what's going on with the driver and how to treat the drivers, that they become successful. To take over a team, to become team principal, I was not shocked or I was not frightened to go there and to do this. I was looking forward, I was optimistic, and it was a hell of a fun to do this.
Can we take it back then? Let's wind the clock back to when you got the call to run Toro Rosso from Dietrich Mateschitz. How much of a surprise was it to get that telephone call?
It was not so much a surprise for me because Dietrich wanted me 1 year earlier to go to England, but I had a contract with BMW. And I said to him, look, Dietrich, I go to Milton Keynes, no problem, but I will not break a contract.
Before Formula One, Red Bull was very much a fizzy drinks company, but they sponsored athletes or sports teams, football teams, and then they decided to get involved in motorsport.
We'll look to grab opportunities as they present themselves, hopefully have a little bit of fun along the way as well.
Red Bull came in with their works team and then bought Minardi to make that their junior team. This was a revolutionary model.
We're here not just to take part, but to compete, and pleased with the progress so far.
No other team on the grid had that kind of facility to get you from kind of grassroots all the way to Formula One.
He called me the year after and said, so, you go now to Italy. And I said, of course, no problem, then I go to Italy. Yeah? In BMW, the engineers, they couldn't understand that I go to the Minardi team. Yeah? And I think it was in Suzuka, there was a pit stop, and the Minardi car caught fire, and they just turned around to me and said, good luck over there, yeah?
How daunting was it for you to become a team principal?
No, it was fantastic. It was, let me say, my dream to lead a Formula One team. You know, at the beginning, I was a little bit shocked because I expected more. There were just 2 older buildings, and that was it. There was hardly anything what you need to do a successful Formula One.
Tell us a little bit more about Dietrich Mateschitz. What sort of a man was he? What sort of an inspiration was he for you?
Dietrich was a unique person.
Dietrich Mateschitz was one of the most influential people that Formula One has ever seen. He brought in a new breed of driver. Gave them the opportunity to go into his junior team, Toro Rosso, which is now AlphaTauri, and kind of learn the ropes, essentially. And then if they were good enough, they would progress to the Red Bull team, which is the team that he would pile all of the resources in, build all of the infrastructure, and try and find the next world champion.
There are many people out there who have visions, but he realized them, and he realized them with a success. He said to me, Franz, you go now to Faenza, you build up the team, and then you have to educate the drivers, and then they come to Red Bull Racing, they will win races and championships. I was sitting there thinking by myself, yeah, okay. But at the end, it worked.
A lot of the drivers that we're seeing who are going on to win races and championships have come out of the Red Bull program.
Having a sister team really contributed to the success of Red Bull. The fact that they came up with Toro Rosso was crucial.
One of the most exciting people I've ever met. Everything worked how he thought it will be. There's Red Bull Racing, they have to win races, they have to win championships, and we are the so-called second team. Use the cars from Red Bull. It was always clear that Red Bull Racing is on another level than us.
You didn't read the script, did you? Because in 2008, you beat Red Bull Racing in the Constructors' Championship by 10 points. How did that go down?
Yeah. It was an Adrian Newey car. When Newey came to the team, He didn't want to have a Ferrari engine, and therefore Red Bull decided to go with the Renault engine. Dietrich called me and said, "You get now the Ferrari engine. Is this okay for you?" I said, "Fantastic. This is very good." Yeah, we had a fantastic package together.
My favourite race of the year. There is nothing quite like the grand old Autodromo.
One of the most incredible races Formula One has ever seen.
It was wet on Friday, and many other teams didn't go out. Gerhard was sitting on the side of me in a bit, and he said to me, "I don't understand why they don't go out." And I said, "No, our drivers should do as many laps as possible just to get used to this."
They got into qualifying, they understood the conditions really well.
I saw other cars going out and with the intermediates.
Tricky conditions, incredibly slippery.
I just said to Gerhard, they have no chance.
Sebastian Vettel has taken pole position. Remarkable, look at the delight.
It's our home Grand Prix. I mean, there are two Italian teams. Now the people know also the small ones, Scuderia Toro Rosso.
And the race.
Vettel hits it, and away we go. We're racing at Monza.
The team did a fantastic job.
Well, if you think you're dreaming, Toro Rosso is leading a Grand Prix.
The Ferrari engine was for sure a little bit better than the Renault engine.
And Vettel isn't just leading this Grand Prix, he is driving away.
Adrian's car was working, as always, fantastic.
Sebastian, you're doing well.
And Sebastian Vettel did a real good job.
Vettel is on fire here.
They managed that race with such a cool, calm, collected kind of mentality. They held their nerve.
Therefore we won.
Toro Rosso gets its moment in the sun. Sebastian Vettel is a Grand Prix winner. One of the greatest things I've ever seen in Grand Prix racing.
For Toro Rosso to achieve a Grand Prix win for the Red Bull family before the main team, the Red Bull team, won was an incredible feat. And I know that Franz took huge pleasure from that.
But as you know, every medal has two sides. The one side was, we won this race. The other side was, all the teams said, this is not the way Formula One can go in future. They have to do this job in future by themselves.
And that completely threw Toro Rosso's business model out of the window. They had to start from scratch.
So that victory at Monza in 2008 was a double-edged sword. That was the catalyst for the change in the regulations.
Exactly. FIA came up with the listed parts, which meant we had to design the monocoque by ourselves, the nose, the front wing, the diffuser, the floor, the side pods, the engine cover, the rear wing, as the complete aerodynamic. And we were there with two old buildings. We had to build up an aero department, a design department, a purchasing department, quality control, assembling, production department. This was a huge, huge challenge. It was a tough time.
I remember talking to Franz Tost about this, and he was saying that was one of the highlights of his career. They've just thrown a new rule book at him, and he was going to find a way to do the job.
Did Dietrich think about axing the team? Because that was not his plan when he bought Minardi.
Not at this moment. Sometimes later, especially when we were struggling with the engines, he was very frustrated. There was not anymore coming to Formula One races, and this was a tough period. But at the end, he was such a Formula One enthusiast and fan, and he also saw that the business grew up. More and more cans were sold every year because of Formula One. And then Red Bull Racing came back to the victory street.
When it came to driver selection, can you talk us through the process? Because it wasn't as straightforward as other teams, was it? Because there was obviously the drivers you wanted, but also there was what Red Bull wanted as well. And were you always aligned?
No, we were not always aligned. The young drivers are being selected by Dr. Marco. They do Formula 4, Formula 3, Formula 2. I know all the names, and of course there were sometimes discussions. Helmut wanted a driver, I wanted a driver.
Who won that battle?
Most often he, sometimes also me, but we always had then a meeting with Mateschitz. Yeah, he was more often on the side of Helmut. Yeah, and then he said, "Yeah, take this driver, he will do it." And I said to them, "He will not do it, but I take him." Okay. Unfortunately, sometimes this was the case. And then Helmut was then upset with me, of course. Our relationship is like a sinus curve, up and down. It's okay.
So of the 17 drivers that have driven for you, who's impressed you the most?
Yeah, at the beginning, of course, Sebastian. He was very disciplined. He took care for every small detail, not only from the driving side, but also from the nutrition side, from the training side. He lived really 360 days Formula One, and this is what I expect. Then, of course, Max, because of his unbelievable speed. When we brought him to Formula One, I remember back some of your colleagues came to me and said, "You are totally crazy. How can you take someone, he even doesn't have a driver license?" Yeah? I remember back this wet race at the Norris Ring. I thought Max is driving on a dry line. He was 2 seconds faster than the rest. We had then the test in Italy. He adopted immediately the speed, the brakes, everything. Other drivers need 10 laps, 20 laps, 100 laps until they adapt the speed. This was really impressive.
But Franz, he was 17 when he made his debut in Formula One in Australia. Did you have any reservations about what you were doing?
No, it was clear. Doesn't matter. This is just a figure on the birth calendar or whatever. If you told him something, he understood immediately what you meant. He immediately. And this was really, really impressive.
Let's talk now about Pierre Gasly. Of the race winners that have driven for you, how does he stack up?
Pierre also developed himself really good, I must say. And unfortunately, they took him away after the first year from us too soon. I said immediately, will not work.
Why did you think it wouldn't work, him going to Red Bull?
He was not matured enough to go there. We are a team to educate young drivers. You can't just say, yeah, he drove now a year with Toro Rosso, he must come now to us.
And then one by one, I have people coming up to me and they're like, "Hey, Leslie, is it okay if me, this person, that person come to your guys' house after?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. We can do a little something after this." And then I realized they're like, "Well, we didn't want to bother you." And then they're like, "Because you might be sleeping." And this is, Selbit came up to me this first time I met him. He's from the QSMP. And he's like, "So yeah, it'd be me and 1, 2, 3 other people." And I was like, "Is this my reputation? Am I?" And they're like, "Well, you're like the sleeping roommate." And I was like, "What?" They think I'm a loser. Okay, they all think I'm the old roommate who has turned the music down. Okay, so I had 6 or 7 people coming up throughout the night, asking me for permission to come over, okay? And I was just like, "Guys, I'm young. I'm down to party. What do you mean? Wait, don't you see me? It's 1 a.m. and I'm out here, guys. Why? What do you? Of course we can." And they're like, "We just, that other night we heard that you weren't happy." And I was like, "Great." So I have a reputation of being the sleeping responsible roommate, I suppose. And then I was telling people "Yeah, you can come over, okay?" And then Tina started freaking out because she was like, "Uh-oh, I think word is spreading around the after party that the after party is at your at our place." And so she's freaking out. And then she's like, "I'm telling people it's canceled." So while I'm giving everyone permission, she goes around and tells everyone it's off.
And then I was like, no, it's on. I told people to come. She's like, I just told people it's canceled. And I was like, well, this is perfect, because if you tell everybody it's on, then the whole party is going to spread the address. So if you tell half the party that it's canceled, well, then we'll have like a perfect, 25 people post Stream Rewards party, because we've seen at the last house, we had a bunch of random people at our house. Remember that whole thing where Mizkiv had to like say, everybody, Foosley and I are going to bed, or whatever, that whole thing. Okay, that that incident had to happen because I was so overwhelmed, because there was like 40 people in my room and I was so uncomfortable and I didn't know what to say, so I just like stood in the corner. Okay, so we prevented that incident from happening. Okay, so, and it actually was a perfect after party, as in the perfect amount of people. Yes, there were a couple random people walking around my house that I didn't
this week, NVIDIA is killing GeForce Experience and eventually its control panel. It's going to consume both of them with a new software suite called NV App. In this episode, we'll investigate what app could possibly mean. Additionally, Intel